Hi guys, it's about midnight on Monday night. This preparing for jury duty every day, preparing for a sub is getting the best of me. I did promise you though that I would share my Everest A to Z with you. So I'll just kind of read off. I got quite a bit here, A to Z on two sides. There were some that I didn't find letters for, and I'm sure that was the case for you too. But maybe I'll add to something that you didn't talk with your group about already. Maybe not. I will provide some page numbers also, so maybe be sure that you're jotting those down as I go through. Then when I finish, Mr. Kimmel will have a quiz for you. So let's start with A, and these aren't going to be in any particular order. In fact, they'll probably be out of order as I ran out of room on the front side. A, I had the Ang, D-O-R-J-E, who was the Sirdar for Rob Hall, page 109. So again, Ang, A-N-G, D-O-R-J-E, the Sirdar. We talked about Sirdars, I think, on the last chart. Then Ang Tshering, capital T-S-H-E-R-I-N-G, was the base camp Sirdar. A, I also used Andy Harris, and I jotted down page 152. John climbed with him on May 6th to Camp 2. Another A, the acclimatization was complete on page 145. Another A, that Anatoly Boukreev, capital B-O-U-K-R-E-E-V, but his first name was Anatoly. He was Fisher's guide, who really let Scott Fisher down. Page 155, you read about Fisher paid him $25,000 when most of the guides got $10,000 to $15,000, but Anatoly let Scott down. And then the other A I have is Andy Harris. And you remember that Andy was hit by a boulder, hit in the chest by a boulder that came from above, page 156 and 157. For the B's, I have the belay, B-E-L-A-Y, page 96. And again, I think just jot these terms down, jot the page number down so you can get back to them if you need to. I have the bottled oxygen debate. The bottled oxygen debate, pages 158 and 159. I have bickering between Hall and the Taiwanese and the South African teams over the responsibility for stringing the ropes up the Lhasa face. And another B, I have Beck Weathers. You learn about his background on pages 140 and 141. He was that doctor that turned mountaineer. You learn more on page 142, so 140 through 142. Letter C, I have Camp 3, where John and Doug make the attempt to climb, and they get called back. We find out that Doug gets frostbite and a frozen larynx, which kind of puts him in doubt for the rest of the trip. Page 143, more about Camp 3. They reach Camp 3 and build platforms. And then page 145, they descend back down to Camp 2 and then to base camp to kind of regroup and recoup for the final push to the summit. Another letter C, I have Chen Yunan. Chen Yunan, C-H-E-N, capital Y-U-N-A-N, on pages 161 and 162. He was the Taiwanese man out going to the bathroom when he lost his footing and went hurtling down the Lhasa face. He fell about 70 feet, and then the next day he had to descend with help, and he lost consciousness and eventually died. Letter D, I have the dead bodies that John Krakauer saw on the way to Camp 2. He saw 2 dead bodies and kind of talked about the impact that had on him. Dolly Lefevre, page 121, became the first American woman to reach the summit of Mount Everest in March of 1994. She was an Alaskan woman. The word dehydration, page 157. Death zone was the term used for above 25,000 feet. And then Doug Hansen, on page 170, you read about how he was not doing so well on the South Col, C-O-L. Those were my D's. Letter E, just on page 140, I found something that said climbing Everest was about enduring pain. Letter F, Fisher, Scott Fisher's health, page 156. Scott had to pick up the slack for Anatoly and make multiple trips down and back the mountain when he should have been saving his strength. I also have Frank Fishbeck, page 158. Frank struggled near the top, and on page 173, he gave up and descended. Letter G, I'm sure you guys caught the Gamo bag, page 114, that inflatable plastic chamber that was coffin-sized to kind of simulate lower altitude, at page 117 also. And also for G, Goran, G-O-R-A-N, Kropp. He was that Swedish soloist, solo climber who in the end was smart and turned around. And also letter G, that Makula Gao, G-A-U, he was the leader of the Taiwanese team that they were having, having difficulties with. It's close to midnight right now, and I'm doing this. H, letter H, I have HAPE, high altitude pulmonary edema, from climbing too high, page 113. It was Gawang, N-G-A-W-A-N-G, I think is how you pronounce that, Gawang. The N is silent. Also for letter H, I had Ingrid Hunt. She was the team physician for Fisher's group of 25, and you saw her on page 116, Ingrid Hunt. I also had Rob Hall for letter H of Mountain Madness. There were 15 in his group to ascend to the summit. Letter I, you read about the IMAX team, page 119. They were shooting that $5.5 million giant screen movie. For I also had the ill will between Hall and the South African team. For I also had Ice Chopper, page 157, when they had to chop out the ledges, and Ice Axe. For letter J, the Jumar, that rope gripper. John, I just jotted down page 145, so you could look at John on page 145, and John on page 168. I mentioned he was climbing without oxygen for the first time in his life on page 168. Letter K, I have Louis Kosicki, page 141. Take a look at what was talked about, that Lou. And then Dale Cruz also was one of Fisher's group who got HACE, that high altitude cerebral edema, page 140, page 144, page 141 I have written down. Letter L was Lopsang Jangbu Sherpa. He was that 23-year-old Sirdar for Fisher He was the nephew of the man who died, that Nawang who died. You could read about him pages 133 to 134. It talked about this young man, this Lopsang. He was called one of 4 luminaries. That was another L word from page 134. He reached the summit in May of 1993 with no oxygen, and then he did it again. He climbed the Lhasa face, page 139. He was considered one of the young luminaries or up-and-comers on Mount Everest. Lou Kasischi again, page 158, who was struggling near the top. Letter M, Tim Madsen, page 115. He got HAPE trying to help Nawang. And then I also jotted down May 10th. Remember, that was the day that Hall planned as the summit day, page 146. That was the day that he had attempted 2 other summit climbs, May 10th. And then I also have page 160, Messner and Habeler, who in May 1978 made the first, what was considered the first true ascent of Everest with no supplemental oxygen. So then was kind of that debate about whether it was a real climb if you used oxygen. They were called cheaters for using oxygen, but Messner climbed again in August of 1980 without oxygen. Another term I have for the M is that Mirabile Visu, page 171, Mirabile Visu, just kind of means wonderful to behold. So they were up on Camp 4 waiting to ascend to the summit, and all of a sudden the wind stopped blowing, and it was a kind of a sight wonderful to behold. So they started climbing at 7:30 in the evening. That was letter M. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Nawang, page 112 and 113. He was Scott Fisher's Sherpa who got ill, and remember that whole big excursion to get him down the hill and get him help of doctors. He ended up dying, though, of HAPE. There you read about Silver, Hunt, and Litch, who took turns trying to revive him. Nawang, and Nawang lived for about 2 months beyond that, but he ended up dying once he got back to civilization. Letter O, I have O2 bottles, the oxygen bottles, page 169. They were collecting on South Cal, and you read about efforts to get them off the mountain. Letter P, I have several terms here. A prediction on page 104, go back and check that. I have pulmonary edema, page 117. Nawang's pulmonary edema started on page 117. Letter P, I have Sandy Pittman. A lot was written about Sandy Pittman in these chapters that you read. She was that international correspondent on the quest to climb all 7. The first American woman on the quest to climb all 7, but she was more of a social climber than a mountain climber. She traveled with all this equipment and really wanted to be in the news. And remember, it was Lopsang who carried her on his back, page 175 at the end. And there was a controversy about that as well. For P, I also have prayer flags, page 132, were hung to protect the camp from harm. And a puja, the religious ceremony that they conducted before a climb to the summit, on page 133. And then check out the physical effects on page 161. Page 161. Q, letter R. I have Roof of the World, page 143. So you could check that out. Roof of the World, page 143. And I have Rope, page 167. only a single rope snaked up the lots of face, so it was not easy to pass other climbers. Letter S, I have, let's see, Serdar, page 108. The South African team became pariahs, pages 111 and 112. I have the term Sagarmatha or Sagarmatha, S-A-G-A-R-M-A-T-H-A. She was a goddess of the sky. And so pages 132 talked a lot about the role of the Buddhist religion and superstition and rituals. You read about the Sherpas building, another S, those stone chortens or altars or monuments at base camp, one for each expedition. And then I also noted solar radiation, page 152. You read about solar radiation. Page 162, 163 under S, I also have serious accidents within the previous 6 weeks before they made their quest for the summit. Letter T, the Taiwanese climbers' incompetence, pages 97, 98, early in this section. I also had John Taskey, page 141. You learn a lot about Taskey. He had been that Australian Green Beret and was now climbing with John. Letter T, also traffic jam, page 167. There were 50 climbers from other expeditions going up the same day as John Krakauer. On page 171, 50 people were camped in Nekal that night. That was letter T. Letter U and letter V, I have nothing. Letter W, Ian Woodall, the Ian Woodall scandal with South Africa. Check out pages 100 to 101. Ian Woodall was called a liar over that scandal. Then the XYZ box, letter X, I have the XI stone, the Xi stone on page 130. That was that sacred Buddhist amulet or necklace that was blessed by a lama that Doug gave to John. So this was a special kind of good luck charm for John. And just below that, I noted on page 130 where he talked about that amulet that John says, I wanted Doug to reach the summit as badly as I wanted to reach it myself. And then for Y, we read again about Yasuko Namba, again, the Japanese lady. We see a little bit about her in this section on page 141. And then I just had one last note here, page 173, 34 climbers depart for the summit in the middle of the night on 3 distinct expeditions. And I think that is all. So we'll have you use your 2 charts. You shouldn't need your first chart, but your first chart has some names on it. So maybe you can look in the camera now. Maybe you would like to use both charts. Mr. Kimmel will give you a quiz for chapters 7 through 12. Use your book, use your notes again. And then for the next time that we meet, which will be Thursday, I believe. Wednesday. This is only Monday. Seems like Tuesday already. So for Wednesday, the next sections would be chapters 13 through 15, starting on page 181. So in class on Wednesday, why don't you plan to have a reading day in class on Wednesday? And I will call this a wrap and say goodnight and have a great Tuesday. Thanks. Talk to you later.